on out, it's all about District 10. Howdy, I'm Jeff Goldsmith, Senior Editor for Creative Screenwriting Magazine, and man, do I wish I could have had this in my screening series. In fact, I am secretly hoping that this filmmaking team makes another trip through the States and I could catch them on the rebound. Alas, if that does not happen, here's what I've got for you. Producer Peter Jackson. And by the way, it's always good to know that when Mr. Jackson is not writing and directing himself, he just goes off and produces an amazing film. Of course, also on the panel, and its focus, by the way, District 9's writer-director Neill Blomkamp, and the film star Sharlto Copley. All this from the standing room only Hall H, which was filled to the brim of 5,000 people at the 2009 Comic-Con in San Diego. Needless to say, I love the film. It's had some fantastic reviews, and honestly, some of the few detractors I've seen really puzzle me. Some of them, you could tell by what they write, weren't paying good enough attention during the film and thus bring up questions that have basically already been answered. Others nitpick at minutia, seemingly forgetting the genre that they're talking about and simply admitting that they have no ability to maintain suspension of disbelief if their own personal minutia isn't addressed properly, which of course is their prerogative. But usually it's kind of the bigger elements that would break the suspension of disbelief, not the minutia, because this isn't really a film about the minutia. But finally, a few of the reviewers and folks posting their thoughts online go out of their way to accuse this film, which examines racism through the eyes of aliens, for being racist. Now, if you could figure that one out, you deserve a cookie. What appeals to me is the great character-driven storytelling and character-driven action. It's tied together. It's not just thrown in for the sake of special effects. I also really appreciate seeing science fiction grounded within a thematic that includes an ethical or moral dilemma, which is always inherent in the greatest of science fiction literature, but we don't see often enough these days on the big screen. So again, kudos to Neill for such smart and entertaining writing and directing in his feature film debut. In other news, I finally joined Facebook and Twitter, so you could follow Yo Goldsmith on Twitter, or just type Jeff Goldsmith into Facebook. I set up a page you can become a fan, which anyone could get full access to on Facebook's site, members and non-members alike. Now, for the record, I'm not some egomaniac that thinks he deserves fans. I'm just keeping my personal account personal on Facebook, which means rather than you becoming a, quote, friend and then seeing all of my mom's crazy rants about how I need to get a haircut, which I will admit I might need to, you could become a fan and skip all that and just chat with me, and everyone else for that matter. But not my mom. Of course, don't forget to keep an eye out for Creative Screenwriting Magazine's latest issue at Barnes & Noble and Borders bookshops in the United States, Canada, the UK, Western Europe, and of course, Australia. You could find out what's in the latest issue by visiting www.creativescreenwriting.com. But hey, let's talk about swag again for a second. How's about a free audiobook? That's right, you could choose one of 40,000 different audiobooks as a free digital download by using the following link. Ready? Here it is. www.audiblepodcast.com/screenwrite. That's Audible, spelled AUDIBLE, podcast.com/screenwrite, spelled SCREENWRITE. So as I've said before, people all over the world could still use the site itself, but only the USA and Canadian listeners could take advantage of this deal, whereby after using that link, all you have to do is sign up for a 14-day free trial membership for the Audible Listener Gold monthly plan, and then you'll be able to test drive the site by downloading one free audiobook of your choice. The cool part is that even if you decide to cancel the plan within your 14-day free trial period, the audiobook you downloaded is still yours to keep. Obviously, there's Michael Haig's Screenwriting for Hollywood or Robert McKee's Story, which are both solid choices, and Story is read by the one and only McKee himself for a runtime of 6 hours, or the equivalent of 6 of my podcasts these days. Since today's episode is centered with science fiction, why not consider reading a great science fiction classic like Isaac Asimov's Foundation, and the sequels that they have listed on there, which are also excellent, or Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451, or Philip K. Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which, as you know, became Blade Runner, or even his classic Nebula award-winning novel, The Man in the High Castle. Or hey, how about one of my favorite authors, Harry Harrison's Make Room, which became Soylent Green? There's plenty of possibilities, amigos, and remember, it's all part of a 14-day free trial period that allows you to download one book to keep, even if you cancel your membership within that 14-day period. The link again is www.audiblepodcast.com/screenwrite. And if you're still looking for more cool things to do online, don't forget to catch this week's Film Spotting podcast with hosts Adam Kempenaar and Maddie Robinson, at filmspotting.net. Over there, you'll find film reviews, interviews, and a lot of the cinematic chatter that keeps you coming back for more. But now, without further ado, and thanks to my good friend Adam from Texas, who responded to a tweet I posted asking if there was anyone that could cover some Hall H material for me. Adam, a podcast listener, responded and was able to get me this recording, so thanks again, Adam. Let's jump right onto the stage of the standing room only District 9 Q&A from Hall H at the 2009 Comic-Con convention in San Diego, somewhere around the time that Peter Jackson, the film's producer, was introduced.
Bag full of Oscars, but one of his favorite honors is being crowned the Geek God by the New York Times. Please help me welcome a remarkable filmmaker, Mr. Peter Jackson.
Thank you very much, thank you. It's so much better being here than being a talking head on a screen, because I get to see you guys, which is fantastic. All this geek power. I wish you could just take the amount of energy and bottle it and then give it to Hollywood executives to drink. I'm obviously here to introduce District 9, a film I'm very, very proud of. But just before I get underway with that, I know that you're probably going to have a lot of questions about The Hobbit. Like, you're probably going to want to know that, you know, Bilbo Baggins is going to be played by... and I think he's going to be really good. I just thought before we get going with District 9, I'd give you a little bit of an update on The Hobbit. We're about, because everything's a process, it's a pipeline, and we're about 3 or 4 weeks away from delivering our first draft of the script of the first movie to Warner Brothers. Because the film's not green-lit yet. You know, we have to submit a script, the studio have to read the script and like it, and then once we have a script, we can then do a budget, and we have to figure out how much the films are going to cost, and the studio have to then agree and green-light the movie. So it's a process that we haven't really even got to the point that we're green-lit yet. So if any of you want to see The Hobbit, you know, you could drop Warner Brothers a line and encourage them to be kind to us. But I know that there's a lot of speculation about casting and who's playing different roles, and I just want to be able to say, because it may avoid some of the questions later on, that, you know, we haven't got to the stage that we can offer anybody a role yet, because obviously we have to be green-lit. We have to have the authority to be able to make offers to actors, and we have to be able to give them a schedule of when we want them to work and how long they need to work for. And obviously actors are going to want to read a script, so we have to have a script ready for them. So we're still about 3 or 4 weeks away from delivering that draft, and then we can start the process of the budget, and eventually, probably in about 2 months, is when we're going to be able to actually start to offer people roles. So despite everything you might have read and all the gossip and everything else, they literally, honestly, have not offered anybody a role in the film at this stage. We are doing 2 movies, just to clarify that The Hobbit, because one of the things which is interesting is, as you know, obviously Tolkien wrote The Hobbit first in 1936, and then about 20 years later he published Lord of the Rings, and he'd expanded and developed the world of Middle-earth way bigger and larger and more detailed than he knew about when he wrote The Hobbit. And he did a lot of retrospective detailing. So The Lord of the Rings, the novel, contains a lot of information about what was happening during the years of The Hobbit and events that were happening outside of that particular storyline, but, you know, things that were happening behind the scenes in Middle-earth and the geopolitics and things. And so Tolkien never got to combine that together in one book. But one of the things we were really excited about when we got to be thinking about it is we can take that expanded information that he developed later on and we can apply it to The Hobbit and sort of make it fuller and more epic and sort of really put The Hobbit in the context of the greater activity that's happening in Middle Earth at that time. So to do all that, we figured that we really need 2 epic films to be able to really tell that story. So that's the plan, just to sort of clarify that. I just wanted to clear a couple of things up. And now we should get on to District 9. How many of you saw the film last night? Did anybody here get to see it? Because it's, it's really, it's a film I'm very, very proud of. And the first person I'd like to introduce is the lead actor of the film. I should just say that it was an unusual experience for me, because one of the things that Neill, who you'll get to meet, our director, wanted to do was to make it a very much an improvisation. The film would be improvised. It wouldn't be based on a screenplay. It wouldn't have a rigid sort of written dialogue that would have to be followed. He wanted to make it spontaneous to some degree. And even though we had a storyline that we were following a predetermined storyline, he wanted it to have a very real feeling. So it's hard to find actors who can improvise. It's a very, very difficult talent. And it's not very easy, and even very good actors who are used to delivering scripts, they dry up when you ask them to improvise. And so Neill always said to us that he had a buddy of his who he met when he was in high school in South Africa, who he wanted to play the lead role, and it's somebody who hasn't really acted before. And I'm going to introduce him now, and I can just tell you that when you see the movie, you're going to be absolutely blown away by his performance. So let's introduce Sharlto Copley. And, sorry, I'm just going to take a photo or two. Smile. That's right, good, smile. No, the guy, but smile at the back, sorry, I'm going to do that again. That's good, thank you. This is a moment to remember for the rest of my life. And now let me introduce the director of District 9. If anyone was born to make movies, it's Neill Blomkamp. So please welcome Neill.
Before we start talking about the film, why don't we show the folks a little bit of it, shall we? Show them.
Yeah. That was loud too. Wow. Yeah, that's very cool.
Let's talk about your decision to make District 9 a pseudo-documentary, to use that genre, that format to tell your story. Why did you do that?
Well, I think the main reason for wanting to do that is because I really like the idea of science fiction that feels real. And I wanted to try, because I like sci-fi so much, and I knew I wanted to make a science fiction film, I kind of wanted to see it in a way that kind of felt as realistic and grounded as possible. And so in order to do that, I thought that using some sort of real life footage, whether it's news footage or handheld documentary filmmakers or security cameras, as much real stuff that we associate as the real media world and not filmmaking would help ground it and would help make it feel real. So that was the approach. I mean, that was the idea right at the beginning. Even the short film has that in it.
As fantastic as the film looks, the issues it deals with are very sort of mundane, human, current day issues. Did being raised in South Africa, did that have an influence on you?
Yeah, hugely. I mean, even aside from some of the issues that it raises, because ultimately it is kind of a Hollywood thrill ride, really, more than any sort of political statement. But I think that me growing up in South Africa had a huge hand in wanting to see science fiction that I loved as a kid, that everyone here loved, placed in an environment that was like slightly unusual. And that environment was the one that I grew up in. It's just because I grew up there, and meanwhile I was watching, Alien and 2001 and everything else. So I thought it would be cool to put that sort of sci-fi Western, fiction into South Africa. So it's conceptual, it's image-based originally. I think it was just that I wanted to see it. And then because of South Africa's sort of really racially charged political background, that's the natural place for the story to go, segregation and everything else.
Sharlto, you haven't done a ton of acting.
In front of the mirror, yeah.
To take on a role like this, by the way, I saw the movie last night, your performance is brilliant. You carry this film on your back, pretty much. Were you initially nervous about that at all?
Not really, man. I mean, I haven't acted, as you say, but I was, a filmmaker from a very young age. So, from like the age of 10, I was, probably like a lot of people here as well, just making films with whatever you could find. And often, putting myself and my friends in them. So I've done a lot of characterization, if you will. I was always the person doing accents and prank phone calls and that kind of stuff, and messing around.
He's like Borat. He's like the South African Borat.
Convincing my friends. I convinced one of my best friends that I was in the witness protection program. He was like a 10-year-old friend of mine. And it's like, that didn't go so well afterwards, but I did, actually. So I always had that ability, and obviously knowing Neill, we actually did like a live in Joburg, which was 2005. Which I produced for him at that point. So the concept resonated with me. We had a lot in common, having with a very similar emotional kind of feelings around what we'd grown up with in South Africa. So I think when it came to actually shooting it, it was a very normal situation. Actually, I never felt nervous or stressed or pressured. The Peter Jackson part was the really weird thing where you're sort of making this little movie with no money and a shoestring, and the next thing, Peter's going, there you go, come and make it. That was the part that was kind of like, a little intimidating. It was inspiring and it was humbling at the same time, to go through that. You're kind of inspired because where the industry's going, you really feel like it's easier to make things nowadays. It means it's more competitive, but you can get seen and you can get through. And it was humbling in the sense of just for myself, as an actor, at least knowing that there was no way I could have made that situation happen. Like people were saying earlier about fate and just kind of sticking with yourself and trusting that and flowing with life. And I feel very blessed to be here today.
Are you ready to be a movie star?
Dude, I don't know about that, man. Like the whole thing is kind of weird to me, It's so much easier, the film, being in front of the camera, so much more stress.
Well, dude, actually, if I remember correctly, you did keep asking me when we were filming when the fame would begin.
Yeah, that was like the standing joke between us, because Neill had this thing where like he was, I became convinced that he was trying to see what I would do, like when I would say no. Because we have this thing about actors that throw their toys because they don't want to get cold or they don't want this to happen. So I was like really pushing myself, and like day one comes and there's a scene in
which is being cut,
which is cut out of the film. Interestingly, Neill
conveniently I got rid of it.
That it's not in the film now, but the first day arrives and I'm kind of, the wardrobe lady's there and I'm really feeling confident and I'm not nervous, as I was saying, and she takes out this little flesh-colored sack, like a little bag, and she says, "This is a jewel bag for when you're in the bath." And I was like, "Are you serious, man?" And literally, there's like a flesh-colored sack that kind of, it's 18, right? So I don't know how graphic I can be, but like, and literally my day one was like sitting with this little sack around my private parts with a little drawstring as well. You can make like a little bow on it. And I was just like, dude, come on, And it's like, he's gonna shoot from the waist up anyway, So I knew, like, well, why do I have the sack? But I thought it was
necessary.
I thought, fine. They're all testing me, and everyone was like, well, what if he's gonna do it? So I did it, and
of course it was cut though. We didn't need the footage.
I don't know if that was because of how gross it looked, or if he, actually just didn't. It was a whole setup the whole time just to get me to do it.
It was a setup.
Wasn't it?
We have some time to take some questions from
No, seriously, was it really? Sorry. We just
the old stack setup. Sure, you fell for it.
Yeah.
Jeez, man.
I think we have some time to take some questions from the audience.
Yeah, my question's for Mr. Jackson, but I do think this is your grand movie is going to make it huge. It just looks amazing just from the footage that I saw. But Mr. Jackson, you used to do horror films like Dead Alive, which was amazing when that came out. get back into that genre?
Yeah, I'd love to. Actually, watching Neill do District 9 really has, connected me back to the fun of making low-budget movies. It's very stressful in some regards, and it's hard because you're always, fighting against the budget, and it's, you have to tailor the movie to suit the budget. But there's a degree of freedom and a degree of risk-taking that you can do when you're not, dealing with these huge, big blockbuster type budgets, and that's a terrific lot of fun. And so it's got me itchy again. Look, I've got a couple of years coming up where Guillermo's going to be directing The Hobbit, and I'm not going to be going to the set because he doesn't need me there. I don't have any role to play on the set. It's his movie, and so I'm going to be sitting and sort of twiddling my thumbs, and I'm starting to think, well, maybe I should kind of, find a little low-budget horror movie or something that I can just be making. I've got a bunch of projects I'm developing, but certainly I'd love to get back into that world again. Yeah.
Okay, questions?
Hey, how's it going? Good. Just want to say, Peter, you really, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't want to be a filmmaker today. I think your works prior have inspired me. I just want to point that out. Thank you. Spotlight and all that. So, Neill, this film looks like a potential masterpiece. I'm just throwing it out there. I don't want to inflate your ego as much.
Yeah, that's maybe a bit strong, dude. Just like.
So, but my question is, where did you draw inspiration in terms of the aliens, like their language, how they look?
Yeah.
There's definitely like a bug vibe going on.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, the inspiration for the aliens and just for all of the science fiction aspects in the film in general, I think it's a whole bunch of science fiction floating around in my head from the time I was a kid. It's like all of, probably your favorite films as well that are in that genre and mine have just kind of been brewing and kind of flowing around in my head. And the fact that I was so aware of wanting to put that kind of sci-fi in Africa meant that I, to a certain extent, wanted some of the science fiction to feel like, or on a design basis, feel kind of familiar. Almost like the South African portion of it is the alien part, and the science fiction is something that we've seen before in a way. So in terms of the hardware, like the ships and the guns and the vehicles and stuff, that's where the design cues came from. But the aliens themselves, where all the ideas come from in terms of visual design there, was that they were insects. And the reason they were insects in design is because in the movie they kind of have this, we don't really go into it that much in the film. I wish there was a way to go into more of the backstory of District 9 because it's such a rich, sort of dense universe. But the idea is that the aliens are really like an insect hive, and they've kind of lost their queen in their upper echelons of society, and they're kind of aimless and sort of, they don't have any guided direction because they are the drones. They are these kind of like biological drones, like termites or ants. And I really wanted that. And when if that's what these aliens are on a biological standpoint, forgetting about any analogies to apartheid or anything else, then they're insects. And so I just started going down the road of designing those insects, and yeah, so now they look like insects.
All right, thank you. I also want to point out that I think I'd be a great bomb boy. I'm just throwing that out there.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question.
I have a question for Peter Jackson and Neill. If District 9 is a critic and box office hit, do you think the Halo film that both of y'all imagine them doing will get green lighted for good this time?
Well, I'll certainly tell you whatever I know about Halo. When we were involved in it, it was being produced by Fox and Universal, and as far as I'm aware now, the film rights have expired and they're back with Microsoft again. And we had a pretty miserable time when the film fell over because, as I explained to you, obviously it's not a happy moment when a film drops dead on your doorstep. But I also know that, I know that Microsoft felt the same way as well because they care a lot about Halo. I've got a huge amount of respect for Bungie and Microsoft and the way that they've developed that world. And I think they feel a little bit like they've been bitten by the experience of trying to deal with, the Hollywood system and get films made. So I know that, they're looking at what to do with Halo. They're looking at the strategy of games, of how a film might fit into that.
So at the moment, we're certainly not involved in any way with any Halo movie, and Microsoft, I think, are very much figuring out what to do next and what they'd like to do with the property. So it's in a sort of a state of abeyance at the moment.
Would y'all like to do it if the opportunity ever came up again?
I'm as excited about Halo now as I was then. I mean, it's still it's a terrific game and a terrific universe. So yeah.
Neill, is that something you'd still be interested in?
I need some, it's like Pete was saying, like, if you put that much effort into something that collapses, there's a little bit of, wounding that happens, I suppose. So, and going through the process of District 9, it was just such an awesome creative experience that I feel like, right now I feel like I kind of want to develop some of my own ideas, but the universe of Halo was then and is now so, just completely creatively kind of calling me to it. That on a creative level, I would love to do it. It's just a case of the politics kind of working themselves out and making sure that we don't repeat something like what happened. But yeah, it's a complex sort of emotional thing to go through something like that. So I'm lucky I got District 9.
It's like a bad breakup, and you want to go out with that girl again?
No. Yeah.
We have another question we can go to?
Okay. Welcome to Comic-Con.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
That was amazing. I can't wait to see it. Anyways, my question is for Mr. Jackson. I was wondering what sort of differences you experienced when you produced rather than directed, and if you like it better or worse, or there are, better parts, and you sort of wish you could just have, both of the good moments from directing and producing.
It's a very interesting question, actually, and I think the answer to that, I think, depends very much on the project and who you're working with. I don't think there's a stock answer. My experience on District 9 was really terrific because I just felt that my role that I was playing in a way was helping Neill get this film made. I mean, he's the author of the movie, and there's no point me trying to have Neill make my movie by proxy, because I may as well do it myself, and that wasn't the intent here, because I really believe that Neill's a terrifically exciting filmmaker and is going to make a lot of cool films in the future, and that I saw my role as one in helping facilitate getting that first film made. I mean, now that Neill's got his first film made, if it does well, he doesn't need me anymore. I've done my bit. I sort of
I'll always need you, Pete.
But so really, what I tried to do really was just keep throwing ideas at Neill. Some of them were creative, some of them were based on experience, telling him what to expect, what he might find, just things, anything I could think of that would be helpful to him. And whenever I was giving him ideas or suggestions or thoughts, I always let him have the final decision. And, the movie is very different to a movie I'd have made. If I'd used that same premise and made a film, I wouldn't have made this film. So this movie is definitely authored by Neill, but I'm incredibly proud to have my name on it. It's a terrific movie, and so I'm very happy with the role that I played. Very, very happy indeed.
Neill,
Thank you very much. Oh, sorry.
Neill, I think it's to your credit that as spectacular as the effects are and as great as the action is, it never sort of overpowers the story, which I think is the theme and the focus of the film. Is it tempting when you have a little bit more money to work with than you usually do to maybe play with more toys and to lose sight of the story you're trying to tell when you get to dabble with more effects?
Well, I haven't had that much money yet, so I don't know.
You guys keep saying this is a low-budget film. It looks high budget to me. So.
You know the interesting thing about not to interrupt you, but the thing, because people have asked that about Neill, what I've obviously known him and produced for him and worked with him for a long time. Like, Neill comes from a 3D animation world where he was and the sort of a design world.
I come from Vancouver.
Yeah, but he basically, what you could see in his animation work as an effects artist was a desperate feeling of wanting to tell a story and wanting to move people. Where I think a lot of directors that are working with visual effects today, they come from that world and then they see the toys and they get excited about the toys, like, wow, look at that, look at the render. You know, it's so cool. Neill's like been rendering since he was 12 years old. He just wants it, like, that's the feeling I always got with you. It was like, as soon as you got into live action, it was like, thank God, you know, you used to say like, oh, I don't have to sit in front of a computer, you know. And
but it is interesting though, because I know what you're saying. It's like with $150 million or something, then what would happen?
Could you have too much?
Well, you wouldn't. I mean, you wouldn't have the freedom that you have, because with that sort of money, you get this terrible anxiety, and you have a sense of responsibility, and you start playing it safe. You know, once you deal with big budgets like that, you have an obligation to earn a lot more money back at the box office, and so you therefore the movie tends to get a little bland, and you're playing to demographics, and you're wanting to get a wide audience. I mean, the thing with District 9 is, I mean, it was a $30 million movie, which was low enough. It was low enough to give Neill a huge amount of freedom. I mean, he didn't have to worry about any appealing to a particular demographic. I mean, it was made for you guys. It was made for fans of this genre, and it doesn't. You know, it was never made to go outside of the genre fandom, really. And if it does, that's terrific and great. And if it does, it's because the film has heart and it has emotion. That's the reason why it might appeal outside. But it was a great ability to just go crazy with a low enough budget to allow him to get away with doing that. You know,
we had so much freedom. I mean, that was the thing, and having Peter's support to just, you know, play things like, you know, from an acting point of view, my accent, you know, as a South African, there was that issue of, oh, you know, would they say that the accent must be toned down?
Well, there was the request for Tom Cruise to redub your voice.
There was also that. So it's like, you know, just to be able to play it for what it really was and say, let's take a chance, and, you know, no, it's not necessarily that, you know, Americans need to have accents that, you know, the accent must be American for the Americans to understand it. It's just crazy, you know, to think too small like that. So that was a real relief for me.
I can't recommend highly enough for everyone to go see this. August 14th is when District 9 hits theaters. Please help me thank the creative team behind District 9.
And that's how the Q&A went down. Special thanks again to producer Peter Jackson, writer-director Neill Blomkamp, and star Sharlto Copley for coming down to Comic-Con and hanging out with all us geeks.
If you dug this episode of the podcast in general, consider tossing a virtual tip into our PayPal virtual tip jar by visiting www.creativescreenwritingmagazine.blogspot.com and look for the PayPal icon. Your tips are appreciated and definitely help out with equipment, hard drives, and all the other stuff we need to keep this podcast running. Of course, feel free to check out my blog, which I even managed to update on the rare occasion that I have time to do so by visiting www.jeffgoldsmith.blogspot.com. You can also always feel free to drop me a line by emailing me at yo.goldsmith@gmail.com, and I'll do my darndest to get back to you as soon as I can. Of course, don't forget to click that subscribe button in iTunes or your podcatching software, because that's how episodes are downloaded automatically every time you click refresh. And if you have a minute, feel free to leave us positive feedback in the iTunes Music Store or at podcastalley.com. I'm Jeff Goldsmith, senior editor for Creative Screenwriting Magazine, thanking you again for tuning in and telling you to stay out of trouble. Till next week.